Okay, we are now recording, so this is where you play or act. or react. Okay, start at the top because you haven't reacted.
So, we're gonna react to that.
If you dropped an ant off the Empire State Building, you might think it would splat on you. But as it fell,
That's awesome.
air resistance would
I love
create a
this video
cushion of drag,
because that
slowing
one
it down.
thing, remember?
And since it only weighs a fraction
That
of
part
the
that
ounce,
just
the
the
force pulling
No,
it
the
toward the Earth
common.
is tiny.
The common.
Even when it reached its highest possible speed,
Remember
it would
the
still
common
only
section?
fall at a few
Of this?
miles per
No.
hour.
Oh,
and
okay,
its tough
okay.
shell means it would hit the ground before walking away unharmed.
I want to be an
If you
ant.
dropped an
That'd be
ant
so
off
fun.
the Empire State Building, they squeezed their shoulders into the flooded tunnel,
Nope.
holding their guns against
That's
their chest.
wild. Is that Kanye?
Next, they used their feet to inch backward.
That's Kanye.
While holding
That's
their guns
Kanye.
against their
That
chest.
does look like Kanye.
Next, they used their feet to inch backward until their whole body was inside.
Tell me that's not Kanye.
Even though it's filled with water, there's just enough space to breathe. And once they're in, there's only one way out. They have to keep moving through the tiny space
Oh my
without
gosh, I hate
drowning.
that.
Now, this 9-foot tunnel is
Get out of there,
part of
Kanye.
the commandos' training, and a warning to recruits
I mean,
is written
V.
above. If you enter, you die. They squeezed their shoulders into the
do you
flooded
mean,
tunnel
you mean
while
V?
holding their guns against their chest.
Oh, this video I really want to show you.
Can money actually grow on trees with enough science? Well, you'd have to look at the
No,
tree's
Zack.
DNA and find the parts that control its leaves. Using a special protein, make a tiny cut in genes that control shape and color. The DNA will try to repair itself, and as it does, you can sneak in new instructions. The new leaves will start to grow the way you want, getting more rectangular and developing white patterns. And if you keep editing, you'll get closer and closer to what you want over time. Meaning, in just 5 years, you could actually grow money on trees.
5 years, huh? Is that Zach's prediction?
Okay, so someone commented on the video, the transparent and special ink parts, robot leg emoji, that's a prosthetic leg. Prosthetic leg emoji, prosthetic leg emoji, prosthetic leg emoji, nerd emoji, liar emoji, laughing, or just crying emoji, Mawai emoji, those little megaphone emoji. I don't even know what that is, but 4 times. Devil emoji, 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 smiling emoji, winking emoji, this face emoji,
Yeah.
whatever that's called, smirk emoji, the covered in dust emoji, like, I don't even know what that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Face melting emoji. Someone literally just commented this. See?
Yeah.
Someone commented, next time your mom scolds by saying money doesn't grow on trees, then say yes they do. And I'm gonna say something fun.
Nice.
What's pissing me off so much is it started like this. They'll be like team this, and they'll point to the like button for people who are on that team.
Yeah.
And then it turns into people just saying team fake, not going to another line, and just putting a bunch of pointing down emojis, not even pointing at the like button. Someone said me after using this method, floating money emoji, money bag emoji, money tongue emoji. I have no clue what half of those emojis are.
Yeah, no, me neither.
On trees. Look how terrified he is it's possible to grow money on trees.
Oh. Let me get out.
Hey, here you go.
Cut it.
If you got onto an indestructible water blob and a car was thrown on the other side, you would soar hundreds of feet into the air. Now, if a
Sounds
blue
fun.
whale was dropped
sounds
onto
fun.
it could catapult you over 10 miles
sounds
high.
even funner.
But if a meteor fell from space and crashed into the blob, the force of the impact would compress the blob and would blast you upward faster than a rocket.
fun.
You
Yes,
would
it
shoot
does.
past clouds and break into
Oh,
the
that
outer
doesn't
layers
sound
of
fun.
Earth's atmosphere, leaving you helplessly floating through space. If you got onto an indestructible water blob and a car was a tiny tube is inserted into your artery and pushed all the way up to your brain. Once it reaches the blood clot, a small tool is released from the tip. This grabs the clot and quickly spins it. The pressure of the rotation pushes out trapped blood and water, shrinking the clot. And once it's small enough, the tube sucks it up, leaving your artery clear for blood to flow.
Thrombectomy.
A tiny tube is inserted into your artery. If you got on, he filled the glass tubes with gasoline and lit them on fire to make homemade lightsabers. Then he broke them over her back as a camera filmed them. But on the 7th stunt, the fuel suddenly exploded. Glass shards flew through the air as the fireball erupted, completely consuming the girl. And both of them were severely burned, ending up scarred for life.
Cool.
If a meteor hit the edge of the Earth, could it make the planet spin faster? Well, the Earth weighs 13 septillion pounds, meaning the meteor would have to be almost half the size of North America.
That's a good
and it would have to hit at exactly the right angle, clipping the Earth at the equator. This would transfer trillions of times more energy than the world's
hold on to that
biggest
fence.
nuclear
You're
bomb.
good now.
And while it would theoretically speed up the Earth's spin, the impact would cause a shock
Sounds like you're talking to Kevin.
across the globe, which would wipe out all life on Earth.
Except for that girl that
If
was
a
holding on to the
meteor
fence.
hit the edge of the Earth, could it make the planet spin faster? Well, the Earth weighs 13 septillion pounds, meaning the meteor would have to be almost half the size of North America, and it would have to hit.
An American
How many
flag
brushstrokes did it take to paint the Mona Lisa?
Oh, I know.
Each stroke of the brush was tiny,
forget.
measuring only a
just
few
told you like
millimeters
5
10,000,
minutes.
20,000?
than a head of a pin. And Leonardo spent 4
I know it was 4
years
years,
carefully
yeah.
adding each tiny layer,
Wait, 4
slowly
years?
bringing
4.
the face to life. Researchers used X-rays to study the painting and found that it was built up with over 30 ultra-thin layers of paint, meaning it probably took over 12 million brushstrokes just to
that's a lot
finish
more
the
than I-
masterpiece. How many brushstrokes did, if you get
like
shot,
2 million.
the tiny sponges would be injected directly
Guess
inside the
10,000.
and as soon as they touch your blood, they would soak it up, expanding rapidly, meaning the wound is completely plugged within
my
20
face.
seconds. This stops you from bleeding out until you can get to a doctor, and a special X-ray marker makes them easy to find when it's time to pull them out. If you get shot, the tiny sponges would be injected directly. You can fit 16 squares into the frame, but the 17th square just won't fit, no matter how hard you try.
What's wrong,
To
face
solve
cam? That sounds
this,
good,
start
face
by
cam, face
placing
cam.
3 squares in the top 2 corners, and add 1 piece right below.
Is it too bright?
Then add 1 each to the bottom corners, with another in the middle. Now place 2 pieces at an angle in the empty gap
Yeah, but that looks
in the
ugly.
center. Slide in 4 beneath those.
No, I
leaving
hate
just
that.
enough
No.
space
It's the
in the
only
lower
way to
center
fit all
the
16.
17th
Throw it away.
square at an
17.
angle. You can fit 6 if you pulled out your eye and the nerve
Zack,
was long enough.
there might be something wrong with
visual
you.
signals would still travel through it and into your brain. This means you could move it around like a camera. And if you somehow made the optic nerve even longer, you could throw your eye around corners
What?
and see into other rooms.
That's wild.
But since the nerve is extremely fragile,
No,
this
no.
would probably damage
Someone
it,
stepped on
leaving
your
you
optic nerve,
permanently
bro.
blind in that eye. If you drop your phone in the toilet, pull it out and
What?
quickly turn it off. Then take out the SIM card and the battery if you can.
This
Now
is so
some people
cute,
think you
Ellie.
should
It's
put it
such
in
a
rice
cute
to suck out the
girl.
moisture, but this works too slowly and won't get all of the water out.
Zigzag,
Instead, find some
satisfactory
silicone gel
little
packets from
woman.
an old shoebox. Next, put the phone and the packets in a sealed
Jackson has
bag. The silica
hundreds of those
absorbs
packets.
moisture quickly and will pull water from deep inside the phone. And after 48 hours, your phone should work again.
Yeah, but
If
it's
you
got
drop your
poop on
phone
it.
in the toilet, pull it. The bird was forced to
put it
eat
in
and
water.
stuffed until it doubled
Why
in
would they-
size. Next, it would be dunked in brandy
I hate
until
that.
it drowned, and the alcohol marinated its meat. The feathers would then be plucked, and the bird would be seasoned before being
No,
cooked
brandy
in
bird.
its own fat. And before eating it, you
That
would
would be
put
a
a
good
cloth
side for
over
some
your
right
head.
there.
This is to hide the shameful act from the eyes of God. You would
I
eat
think
the
you can
bird
see you
feet
under there.
first, crunching through the bones and internal
That's like little
organs
kids that
until
cover their
all that
eyes and
was
think you
left
can't
was
see
the
them because they
beak.
can't see you.
The bird was forced. If you shot a super powerful gun, could the bullet go completely around the Earth? Well, to make a full loop, the bullet would need to travel at over 17,000 miles per hour. They surgically removed 90% of her tongue because it had cancer. Next, they cut a muscle out of her arm. They connected the veins inside her mouth and stitched the nerves together. The muscle was stitched onto what was left of her tongue, matching its shape. And even though doctors said she would never speak again, she said hello to her daughter just days later.
With her arm tongue?
A person is tied down in front of you on the tracks. And if you pull this lever, the train will hit them. Now, you don't have to pull the lever. Instead, you can pass the decision to someone else.
Yeah, I played this game.
The microphone was hidden inside a special gift to the U.S.
Kill the people or divert it.
Or that one is you can give it to someone else. Either you can pull the lever, kill for one person, or you can give it to someone else, and they would have the option to pull the lever, give it to two people, or they can.
Why can't I just not pull the lever and not give it to someone and not kill people?
Oh, because then if the chain keeps on going, then more people will keep doubling, and eventually every single person will be on there.
Radio operator accidentally tuned into the radio signal and overheard the conversations. He warned the ambassador. The microphone was hidden inside a special gift to the U.S. ambassador, and he proudly displayed it in his study. Now, the mic had no wires or batteries. It worked when sound waves from the room would vibrate a small piece of metal inside. Then spies would aim their own radio signal at the bug, allowing it to transmit the vibrations. And they would listen to every conversation.
Hey, John Travolta.
But eventually, a British radio operator accidentally tuned into the radio signal and overheard the conversations. He warned the ambassador, who finally found the bug.
A rat? Don't be a rat.
An airplane dropped a frozen chunk of sewage over a park, according to the
really
legend.
not a
It
nice place
allegedly
to put
fell
it.
toward a man balancing on a seesaw for fun. The block hit the other end of the seesaw with perfect force, launching him straight into the air. He flew high before landing chest first on the crossbar of a swing set. The impact broke his ribs, which punctured his heart and lungs, causing massive internal bleeding. Within seconds, he died from the injury, collapsing lifelessly on the swing set, according to the story.
Oh, that's
An airplane dropped a frozen chunk
great
of
story.
sewage over a park.
It's an urban legend.
And everyone died. The end.
Man balancing on a seesaw. He climbed over the zoo fence so he didn't have to pay for a ticket. But he didn't realize he was entering the tiger enclosure. The tigers watched as he fell from the fence. Then one attacked. People screamed as they watched, and zoo staff tried to help. They used fireworks and water hoses to scare the tigers, but they only stopped when a police officer shot one of them.
Oh, that wasn't even their fault.
The man, he had been in the
Gonna
enclosure
entice
for
them with
nearly
bacon
an
and get mad
hour.
when they eat
He was
it.
taken to a hospital, but the injuries were too severe. He climbed over the zoo. He pulled out grease and rotting food, which cleared out the pipe. But the restaurant refused to pay, saying it was too expensive. So the next morning, he came back with a balloon. He stuffed it in the grease trap and inflated it, blocking off the pipe. And this would flood the kitchen with dirty water. He told them he wouldn't remove it unless they paid him within the hour.
That's right.
Left with no choice, the owners handed over the money, and the plumber removed the balloon.
Just that. That's awesome. Good for him. Ew.
Each
Also.
step forms a perfect square, turning at each corner like a normal staircase.
This hurts my brain.
But even though each step seems to rise, it never gets higher or lower. As your eyes follow the path, it feels like an endless climb that never actually gets anywhere. And this happens because your brain looks at the lines on the page and automatically views them as a 3D staircase. But if it were actually 3D, and you viewed it from the side, you would see there's a gap between the stairs, meaning this illusion only works in 2D.
It doesn't hurt my brain
Each
anymore.
step forms a perfect square, turning at each. He fired straight at the Pope in the middle of a crowded square. 2 bullets tore through, hitting him in the stomach and hand. He collapsed, bleeding badly, but survived with emergency surgery. And years later,
And she must have
Pope
been, like, doing
publicly
this.
forgave the man who shot him,
Yeah.
and even met with him
He was
face to
saying the Pledge of
face. He
Allegiance.
placed the recovered bullet into
I think
a
it was,
crown
like,
on
doing
a
this, I
statue,
think.
claiming that God had guided it away from his vital organs.
Yeah,
He
God
fired
did that for sure.
straight at the Pope. The old saw blade
No
is
comment.
cut using high-pressure water jets. These are powerful enough to cut through steel, but they leave a rough edge. To fix this, the metal is spun around with soapy ceramic pebbles, and these slowly polish it down. Once it's
Ooh,
smooth,
that's cool.
the edge is heated until it glows, and it's quickly
Until
cooled
it
in oil
glows?
to harden the steel. A handle is attached to
I
the
should be on-
end.
I should be on
Finally,
film.
the blade is sharpened, making
supposed to be
a
in
new
front, I'm
knife
supposed
out
to
of
be
an
little.
old saw.
Like I'm a
The
baby,
old
I'm
saw
like
blade
2
is
years old.
cut using high-pressure
Oh,
water
goo, goo,
jets.
goo, goo.
These are
Goo, goo,
powerful
gaga.
enough to cut through
Goo, goo,
steel.
gaga.
The
Goo, goo,
sunlight
gaga.
bounces
Goo,
off the
goo.
mirrors until the beam is directed into the town
gaga.
square, lighting up the small area. And this is because the town is surrounded by steep
They get no
mountains,
vitamin D.
which cast it entirely in shadows
They
for
probably
half
got
of the year. The
surge
sun is
of
too low in the
euphoria and
sky
happiness
to rise
after
above
this.
these peaks. So every day, people gather in that single bright spot,
Not to
soaking
mention
up the only
bone
sunlight
health.
they'll get. The
You need
sunlight
vitamin D to
bounces
absorb
off the mirror.
calcium.
There was a staircase in the middle of the
This
village that
section.
led straight into the sky. The dogs were
Oh, no, it's
strapped
real
with
cool, though.
explosives
Oh, well,
and starved. There was a staircase in the middle of the village that led straight into the sky, with no end in sight. Twice a year, they held Ascension Day, where they chose a name out of a barrel. It was a great honor to be chosen. The
Boy.
villagers would beam with pride. His sister fixed his hair and gave
And then they
him a
killed each other
tearful
because they all fought over
She
which
would
one was
see
boy.
him again when she was chosen. The
They,
elder
like,
pressed
can't
on his
see us.
chest and studied him
They
for a
can when the
moment.
phone gets
Then he
lighter.
stepped aside without a word. He
still
climbed
here.
as the villagers
I'm gonna
cheered,
do it.
but as she
There
watched
we
the
go.
clouds swallow, something
Yay.
felt
Epic.
terribly wrong. Later that night, she snuck through the village and got to the base of the stairs. Climbing them without being chosen meant your name could
You were
never be
chosen.
called. If she did this, she might never see her brother again. But she couldn't shake the unease, so she started climbing. As the village disappeared below, the air
I
got
don't need to be on
thinner.
it, just point it at
It
you,
was
please.
cold.
Oh, this
She
really
found
happened.
a door.
No,
It
it didn't.
opened with a groan.
It's
Inside
fiction. He
was
says
a
fiction
long
right there.
table
Oh.
with
I know.
two strange figures at either end. One of the figures reached out and lifted the lid from the largest tray.
And there was
She
boy.
froze in disbelief. It was her brother,
Oh.
tied like a roast, an
This is so
apple
tiny.
jammed in his mouth. His eyes were blinking. He was still alive. She turned to go get help, but the wind slammed the door shut.
On her hand.
Oh, they're so big. And then what? What?
The dogs were strapped with explosives.
No, I don't wanna watch that.
If a frog grew to the size
Why?
of a car,
Is
it
this
could
about
definitely
dogs?
swallow
I wanna
you
see it.
whole.
I don't-
But
you can watch
frogs
it later.
eat by opening their mouths wide, and
You're
the dogs
rude.
were
I
strapped
don't
with
like you.
explosives
Suicide
and
dogs.
starved, and
Oh,
treats
cool,
were
man.
placed underneath the tanks. The hungry
rather
dogs
see people
learned to
getting
run underneath
exploded.
them in search of food. Then the explosives were fitted with a trigger stick, and in battle, the dogs would run under enemy tanks, thinking they'd find something to eat. The stick would hit the vehicle's side, setting off the bomb and killing the enemy.
It helped
But
kill
when
the
they
enemy.
tried this in the
They should've
field,
done it with a
the
human
dogs
then.
actually ignored the enemy tanks. Instead, they ran toward their own tanks,
Yeah,
since they
good
had been
boy.
trained on those.
Yeah.
Sadly, the soldiers shot them before their own
Okay,
tanks would
cool.
explode.
And then he cried. No, he didn't.
God.
If a frog grew to the size of a car, it could definitely
Why
swallow
are you
you
thinking
whole.
of these things?
Frogs
Because he's
eat by
Zack.
opening
Don't
their
eat
mouths
at me.
wide and sucking
Eat
in
at
their
you.
prey.
You're-
And even
I'm
if
not
it
moving
managed
my
to
hand.
swallow
You're
you,
moving. I'm
it
not.
can't digest something that big. It would eject its
Daddy
entire
large
stomach through its mouth, flipping
cheeks
it
are large?
completely
That is not a
inside
tongue. I'm
out,
sorry, what?
forcing you up its throat.
tongue.
Then the frog swallows the stomach back down, putting it back in
Oh,
place.
stomach.
If a frog grew to the size of a car,
Here.
the popcorn is poured into the chamber, and the lid is screwed tightly shut. Next, a small stove is lit, and the chamber is balanced over the flame. A handle on the end rotates the chamber, and
gonna
this
play with
heats the
that.
metal evenly, causing the kernels to pop, and the air inside expands, creating intense pressure. When the lid is opened, the pressure inside suddenly explodes, shooting the popcorn into the bag. The popcorn is poured into the chamber.
That's
If
not
you
popcorn,
drop a
it's
plastic
popcorn.
bottle in the ocean, currents
Can of
can
corn.
carry it for miles until it vanishes
Something.
into a massive swirling zone of trash. You see, in the 1980s, scientists started finding tiny plastic pieces floating in the ocean.
Microplastics?
And they predicted that the plastic would get trapped in this spot where ocean currents met. 10 years later, a sailor passed through that area and was surrounded by miles of trash.
No way.
By 2015, scientists launched a massive expedition to measure it. They found over a
Measure
trillion
it.
pieces, more than twice the
That is
size of
so
Texas.
Right.
And it's still
And
growing
then they took it
every
out,
day.
right?
If you drop a plastic
Let me tell you something, okay? About how much a trillion is, okay? So, a billion seconds is 31 years.
A billion.
Imagine that, but times 1,000.
Wow, that's crazy. That'd
That'd be over 31,000.
That is crazy.
years. A trillion seconds. Oh, okay, school.
The sword was fixed to
I don't care about that.
If you jumped over a gigantic hair
actually kinda
dryer,
cool.
could you float in the air? Well, a normal hair dryer pushes out enough air to make a ping pong ball float.
That's real.
But to lift you, it would need to be as powerful as a jet engine, blasting
Lift?
scorching air at hundreds of degrees. The force would slam your body with so much
Like
pressure
Uber.
it could break bones and damage your lungs from the
Uber?
inside. And in
Yeah, like
just
the
a
Lyft
moment,
Uber?
the intensity
Oh.
would
The Uber
burn
thing?
you up instantly. If you jumped over a
Cool.
gigantic, split the deck perfectly in half and press the two piles against each other, bracing with your finger. Next, push them gently until the cards spread out. This will alternate them, one card from the left pile and the next from the right. This will leave them perfectly mixed. Now, if you start
That's how you
with
do
all
when you
four
let-
aces
Dad
on
does
the
that.
top, then shuffle the deck twice
Dad can do that.
so
I
that the
can't.
cards alternate. The aces
They make
will
it
be
look so
stacked
easy.
4 cards apart.
Everybody can
Meaning,
do
if
it.
you deal a 4-handed game of poker, you'll end up with all the aces in your hand.
Oh, you're cheating.
Split
You're
the
cheating.
deck
People are
perfectly
cheating
in
poker.
half and press the two piles against
Oh,
each
your
other,
beard's
bracing
wet.
with your finger. Next, push them. If you drank Coke and then swallowed Mentos, you might think the reaction would rip through your torso.
Yep,
but
I've
the
seen it
explosion
happen.
only happens
What?
when the
I'm
gas
just
builds
kidding.
up fast in a tight, narrow space, and your stomach is way too wide to create that reaction. Even if it was, drinking the Coke
Ow.
releases most of the gas before it gets there. Instead, the mixture would foam up, filling your stomach. It would painfully stretch to hold the expanding foam, causing you to violently vomit to relieve the pressure. If you drank
Adorable.
Coke and then rub the needle against a magnet about 50 times. This
Oh,
will
no.
transfer magnetic particles to the
Gives me
needle.
cold
Next,
chills.
find a leaf and place the needle on top of it. Carefully set the leaf in a bowl of water, making sure it floats freely. The needle will slowly start to turn on its own. And this is because Earth has a giant magnetic field with invisible lines running from north to south. The magnetized needle reacts to this field, lining up with those invisible lines and pointing north, turning it into a makeshift compass. Rub
That's
the
really
needle
cool.
against a magnet about 50 times. This
One
will
more.
transfer. If you want to moonwalk,
I do.
start with one foot flat and the other on its toes. While your heel stays lifted, the flat foot glides straight back across the floor. Now it looks like your raised foot is moving, but it actually stays in place while your flat one slides on the floor. And as it moves, your body stays completely level. Then you switch your feet. The sliding foot rises onto its toe, and the other drops flat. Now that foot slides back just like the first.
You made it
Then
more
keep
confusing than I
repeating.
ever
One foot glides,
thought
the other
possible.
lifts, and as your legs move, the rest of you looks like it's floating in place. If you want to moonwalk, start with
you
one
still
foot
got your
flat
on your legs.
and the other on its toes. While your heel stays lifted, the flat foot
No.
glides straight
One
back.
more.
The bullet would be placed into your mouth as you bit down hard. And this would
Ooh,
happen
yeah.
during surgery on a battlefield. You see, there was no anesthetic, meaning you would feel every slice and tug.
There's once a
The
man
bullets were
who
made
removed
of a
his
soft
abdomen
metal
by
that
himself
wouldn't
without
damage your
looking.
teeth.
Yeah.
And while it didn't
So,
stop
he was a
the pain,
doctor.
it gave soldiers something to clench and focus on. And this is what it meant to
Yeah.
bite the bullet.
Here.
The
Start
bullet will
mirrors
be
and
placed
thought-
into your mouth
They
as
thought
you
they were
bit
too
down
disorientating.
hard.
It
And
was
this would
disorienting.
happen during surgery on a battlefield.
Said it.
You see,
I
there was
said
no
the word.
anesthetic, meaning you would
The
feel
worst
every
word.
slice and tug.
Disorientating.
Orientating
Soft metal
tonight.
that wouldn't damage your teeth. And while it didn't stop the
Nu-
pain,
nuclear
it gave
bomb
soldiers
shower.
something to clench and focus
Bye.
on. And this is
I
what
love
it
my
meant
I have a
to
pimple
bite
on
the
my-
bullet.
Please subscribe to
Forehead.
me nuclear bay.
He has a booger in his nose, and I hate
Hey,
it.
bay.
And this
You
would
got
happen
it.
during
Bye, bye,
surgery
bye.
on a
I know,
battlefield.
but-
To guess the
I'm
number
all
of
done.
jelly
You can
beans
guess the
in a
number of
jar,
jelly beans.
measure
That's
its
Jar.
height and its
1,113.
radius. Then
Good job, there you go.
multiply
I'm all done.
pi
Let's see
by
how.
the
Let's
radius
see if I'm
cubed.
right.
This will find the area of the jar. Multiply the area by the height to calculate the space inside.
Alright.
Now, since jelly beans don't stack perfectly, about 20% of the jar is filled with air, meaning you should reduce the number by 20%. Now, one jelly bean takes up about 0.2
care about
cubic
the
inches.
science behind
So
why it works.
divide the jar's jelly bean volume by 0.2 cubic
I'm
inches.
right.
You'll then have a solid guess of how many jelly
Let's see
beans
if
are
we
inside.
float.
There's so many more than
Jelly beans in a
273 in that jar.
Measure its height
Good outro.
and its radius. Then
I did my
multiply
outro. I
pi
showed them my
by
pimple
radius
and said
cubed.
goodbye.
Do it
This will
again.
find the
Subscribe,
area of
Goodbye,
the jar.
like, subscribe,
Multiply
comment,
the
and ring
area
the
by
jelly
the
beans
height
for more
to
love.
calculate the
I'll give
space
you a cookie.
inside. Now, since
I'll give you
jelly
jelly
beans
bean.
don't stack perfectly,